I think the ancient spirits of evil would have a hard time deciding who's the more decayed form. Here's a look at the brand new Mattel Master Universe ThunderCats, Skell-Ra, the ever-living evil of Eternia. Skeletor discovered the mysterious Black Pyramids in Eternia. Now with the strength of Mumm-Ra granted to him by the ancient spirits of evil, Skell-Ra, the ever-living, comes after the power of Grayskull, and he is more dangerous than ever before. I think Keldor's lived a long life. Thanks to Mumm-Ra, though, he's going to live a whole lot longer. Before, though, we get a closer look at the brand new Master Universe ThunderCats collab of Skell-Ra, we're going to take the tape measure as we always do and see how tall the figure stands. Now, I haven't honestly had much luck finding these in the wild. From time to time, though, I've come across a figure here, a figure there. Not a figure everywhere, though. Because of that, though, they're going to be a little bit more sporadic when it comes to the reviews. I've got currently Cheetara on order from Amazon, but like last little couple of days, it says it's supposed to be delivered in the last 4 days, and yet still no sign of Cheetara. Skell-Ra, though, is going to stand at about 7 inches in height. Maybe we would even say it's 7 1/4. That's going to translate, though, to a figure that's 18 centimeters tall. Perhaps to give you a proper perspective of how much taller Skell-Ra is next to a Master Universe Origins figure, we're going to go back to the basics and version 1 Skeletor. I don't know really who is uglier when you're looking at the two figures. Still, though, when you're looking at the two, you can't help but, though, notice that Skeletor is only going to go to the bicep of Skell-Ra. In other collabs that Keldor has done, here's also what the figure looks like with Skeletor from the Master Universe Ninja Turtle line. And if Mumm-Ra really is the big baddie from the new ThunderCats collab, we also want to bring in the collabed character, the bad guy from the Ninja Turtle line. Here's what the figure looks like with that line's Shredder. Mumm-Ra is a mummy of many parts, and of those parts, the figure first includes an instruction sheet. Opening up the sheet, you'll only see it actually has 2 steps. The first step showing you what he looks like as Skell-Ra, the second step as Mumm-Ra. Essentially, really, it is. The cape is going to stay the same, other than you just basically flip the cape around. That's why one is a little bit darker than the other. Let's put the sheet off to the side here. I'm sure we won't be keeping that. I'm not really sure, though, if I'm going to be keeping these. Generally, when we get these index cards, I tend to turf them, or I throw them in recycling. They're large. I mean, they're fine for at least the fact we got ourselves a pretty nice looking scary image of Skeletor, and an equally scary Mumm-Ra. What's cool, though, is they actually give you read-ups on both the characters. So if I actually show you what Skeletor looks like, if I get my thumb out of the way, you can read that for yourself. Got that? Hope so. Okay. And then, of course, you got one here from Mumm-Ra. What's also really cool, though, is if you flip the cards around, providing, of course, you have them lining up, you actually can see what the two could look like when they're merging together. I'm not really sure, though, if they actually are merging, or just in the sense that Skeletor takes the powers of Mumm-Ra and becomes his own entity. So in that sense, you're not really technically taking the two characters and sandwiching them together, but that's still pretty cool. Maybe I'll hold on to these. I'll hold on to these for right now. The figure does also come include some swappable parts. Now, getting this guy immediately out of his plastic prison, I wasn't really sure if he was breathing or not. He comes out of the packaging already as Skell-Ra. Then if you want to change him to Mumm-Ra, you'd have to then take the parts of the armor off and then take off the skirting, and we'll do all that. One thing, though, I did want to mention is that the cape is actually consisting of 2 parts. It either is red or it is more kind of this dark bluish black, depending on, again, how you want to have this displayed. Now, nothing is really necessarily telling you that you have to have this where Skeletor has the cape in red. It's just basically a case of flipping it around. If you actually look at the top here, there's pegs on the top and on the bottom. And if you look on the back of Skeletor's armor, then he has a hole here and a hole here. So the way they've really designed it is that you can either attach the cape, twist it on, make a squeaky noise while you're doing it. You can have the cape about the same colors as armor. The only thing about that, though, is when you flip it around, obviously you can then be seeing the red cape. Or again, you can just flip that around. It works the exact same way. Plugging these both in place for right now, they don't really have to necessarily serve the way as wings. If you wanted to, though, you can easily bring them up as wings. But if you bring them close enough together, boy oh boy, does that not look like a pretty good tattered looking cape. The cape itself does finish off the look of the figure rather nicely. Unfortunately, really, that's the only accessories that are specific to Skell-Ra. All the other trinkets here, terrifying or otherwise, all really belong to Mumm-Ra. I do kind of wish this guy could have come included with a Havoc staff or something, just with really only having the one weapon, which would be, of course, the Sword of Plundar, which happens to be right over here if I just kind of move Skeletor out of the way. That's the only thing he really has for a weapon. So at least as a stand-in, Skeletor or Skell-Ra gets something at least to hold, but it really isn't necessarily something that belongs to Skeletor. If you want to put this in his hands, though, because again, like he's using the exact same hands from Mumm-Ra or Skeletor, basically just clip them in his hands, and at least he has himself a weapon to wield. I guess you could really use the argument if he's getting these powers from the pyramids, then possibly even really the weapon of Plundar would also belong to him as well. Let's take this off. We'll take maybe perhaps the capes off too. The one thing I did notice though about the cape, it causes an issue with always this armor detaching. So basically what it is the armor has a square rectangular peg, and it fits obviously into the square or rectangular hole. Pinching the two together as best you can kind of does an okay job of holding the armor, but every then time you move Skeletor's head around, I always find like the armor gets really loose. Getting a closer look now at Skell-Ra's face. I get somewhat kind of the reminding images of Skeletor the way he looks from the Master Universe 80s live-action film. Very much a live-action Skeletor. The face looks good. I like that they've actually added these little red dollops of pupils right in the middles there. It does look like his face does have this kind of nice glowing yellow to it. It's not really quite really the same color that they've used for the horns. Kind of confused that they would have not used the same color. I think like this color would have worked fine for the horns, but the horns actually seem more like kind of a fluorescent highlighter green. The head is actually, though, a separate piece from the hood, so you can still move the head around if you want. The only one thing you can't do, though, is you can't open and close the jaw. I do kind of wish the jaw could have been opened, or something could have been like a hinge in there, but I know that would have been additional tooling cost and would have increased the cost of the figure. For his armor, it is sort of a collaboration, a combination of Skeletor's original armor. Bringing back in here version 2 Skeletor so you can kind of get an idea. The skirting is very similar. The way he actually has the little shoulder armor does look very similar also as well. The only thing that's different, though, instead of Skeletor having the kind of bat motif on the top of his, he actually carries over the same Mumm-Ra ever-living symbol. I think it could have been cool if they could have found a way to collab. Now, I mean, really looking at this, let me just interrupt my train of thought. I would have said it would have been cool if they could have found a way to incorporate like a snake symbol and Mumm-Ra's symbol. But really, though, when you're looking at it, it does technically already have two serpents. So I guess it's already having to do with snakes anyways. But the skirting looks good. I mean, it's a nice little additional attention to detail. I like that they've added some nice gold in there. The gold carries over well to the top of his bandolier, his armor as well. Underneath that, though, he actually just has a regular loincloth. You can see the way it's sculpted there. Actually, really, it's not as even sculpted in fur either. It looks like it's just completely smooth. Now, in order to kind of get everything going here for stripping down the armor, what you'll have to do is you have to take off this armor piece here. You'll have to slide off the skirting down below, and then you'll also have to take off Skeletor's head. The articulation is going to retain the same whether you want to have this figure displayed as Skell-Ra or as Mumm-Ra. One thing that's kind of always really weird, though, when you look at collaborations like this, is you kind of think to yourself, like, how much of that property had to be combined with the existing property? When I look at a character like Skell-Ra, the first thing I kind of thought to myself was, did Skeletor, could he have not worked better as being his own standalone character? Why I use that argument, though, is I would just put Skeletor down for a second, and I bring in Skeletor from the Master Universe Ninja Turtle line. Now, if you're looking at him and you're looking at Shredder, they were two unique, distinct characters. It wasn't a case necessarily where Skeletor and Shredder combined together. I don't really know what name, Shredditor. I'm sure you probably could have come up with something more clever than that. But the point, though, is that they were separate characters. Yet with Skell-Ra and Mumm-Ra, they're essentially occupying the same figure release. I really rather would have had them as separate and then had maybe a deluxe version of Mumm-Ra, a deluxe version of Skell-Ra. But again, anybody could have looked at this and also said to themselves, well, you could technically really buy just then two figures, and then you would just have them respectively displayed on your shelf that way. And you know that you're right. I mean, that's one way. You just simply buy another figure and you'd have one as Skeletor, Skell-Ra, and then one as Mumm-Ra. Needless to say, though, if you want to change out the component pieces of Skell-Ra, the first thing you will want to do, though, is just detach the armor. The first time you've already done this, it's going to be easy every time after that. So basically, you just slide this off. And I guess really, too, you could also bring up his arms, slide this up his arms that way, or you can also just slide them down. This might also be the easiest way, too. Just slide them all the way down his legs, like that. And then for his skirting, the easiest thing I find is kind of crack him like a lobster tail. Take off the bottom skirt for Skell-Ra, because you're not going to use that anymore. And then what you're going to do is then you're going to have this piece here this is going to be the part for Mumm-Ra. So essentially what it is, sorry as I'm leaving half the state of Skeletor, I'm going to just put him down here for a second. For the parts though of Mumm-Ra, you get basically the bandage pieces. So this is part that's going to go around his waist. These are using kind of a translucent white plastic. This is going to essentially go around his waist. This is going to go over the front of his torso, and then his head's going to go on top of that. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Of course, you also got the skirting there too for Mumm-Ra. Soft plastic for that. And then you also have yourself a bandage that's going to wrap around his arm. Based at least on the instructions. The instructions specifically say it has to go around the arm. I'm sure you probably could put this around his leg as well, but I'm going to follow the instructions. They're there for a reason. So this is going to go over top of his arm. And then, of course, the last thing he's also going to come included with is a really neat looking Mumm-Ra head. Boy, oh boy, that's really cool. Okay, with that all in mind, let's kind of build ourselves Mumm-Ra. So we're going to take the skirting here. We're going to slide that in place. We're also going to take the torso here. And really, though, we don't need Skeletor's head anymore, just to show you what the Skeletor head looked like before we take that off. Very much, does it not look like a live-action Skeletor? Very cool head, though. Let's pop that off, at least for right now. And we're going to take this piece here. So essentially what that is just kind of lift it up, tuck this, though, around the waist, and then fit that over the top of the torso. Kind of like that. Take this piece, and snap the two together. And you kind of want to make sure it's secure enough on there. One thing, though, is with having all this extra skirting, kind of want to make sure, do I have it facing the right way? I don't think it really matters. I don't really think it matters. Maybe it does, but we're going to snap it on the way that we have it. That has to snap in place. This is really, honestly, the hardest thing to do with Mumm-Ra, is just making sure everything attaches securely, because the last thing you really want to do. Okay, I think that's all on there. Take as well the bandages. We'll kind of wrap them up his arm. And we've almost got Mumm-Ra transformed. Get everything on there. There goes the legs. I knew the legs would be an issue. Bear with me as I just pick up everything here. I honestly really feel like the pegs need to be a little bit longer. Or just that I'm not attaching it securely enough. But it's the one issue I kind of really have when it comes to transforming Mumm-Ra. I find like the lower half of his body just doesn't stay properly in place. Sorry about that. It's so much easier, actually, if you just take a little bit of time, feed down the skirt. And then if you actually get in your finger, I'm sorry, of all the places to put that, just kind of put your finger in there and push the peg. And now it's not going to be going anywhere. Okay, so with Mumm-Ra's mostly made, we can take ourselves now the cape. Now the cape, you can do whatever you really want with it. You can either have it facing the way that we had it before with Skell-Ra, but for me, I'm going to flip this around so now it's in red. Now, even though he lost the armor, he still gains those pegs. Those pegs are on the back, you'll see right here. So we're going to take our cape, because again, it has the pegs on both sides. It plugs in on one side. There we go. And it plugs in on the other. Now, if anyone was to really ask me, not that anybody really is, but if you were, though, to ask which way I'll end up displaying Mumm-Ra on the shelf, it's honestly the way you're looking at it right now. Skell-Ra looks cool and all, but the same way, really, though, I'd like to have Shredder as being the big guy that's displayed on my shelf. If there was a way like where Skeletor and Shredder were combined together, I honestly would have displayed him rather in Shredder. With Mumm-Ra, though, again, like all the ThunderCats aren't really necessarily combining characters between the Masters and the Thunders. So we're not necessarily getting a Lion-O and He-Man where the two are mixed together. We're distinctly having a He-Man and we're distinctly having ourselves a Lion-O. For that reason, I would likely display him as Mumm-Ra. And I have no interest in displaying with as Skell-Ra unless I pick up a second figure. Twist my rubber arm. Though for the look of Mumm-Ra, very much classic to the cartoons. They really haven't done much where they've reinvented the character at all. Where, though, you could have kind of said, looking at Shredder. Shredder does have a lot of influence from the Masters, so his armor wouldn't be necessarily something that he would have looked this way in the New York streets, but it certainly does look like something you'd expect from a Master Universe line. Mumm-Ra doesn't necessarily have that. There's nothing really like looking at the figure that I say to myself that distinctly looks like something from Master Universe. In fact, it actually just looks like a smaller, almost ThunderCats Classics line. Of course, he still has the serpent motif there. Now, the serpents are actually printed on his chest rather than something that's sculpted. These arms, again, would just remain the same. I mean, nothing really at all is changing down below. Even like his lower boots or the guards that he has in front of his legs, carried over from Skell-Ra, too. Nothing gets changed there. Still has little furry parts on tops of his feet. Yeah, it's a good looking Mumm-Ra. I'm just going to decide to keep this guy on the shelf as you see right now. Now, for the figure's articulation, despite being the size that he is, he has pretty much the Mo2 standard articulation. So the figure's going to have a ball joint. So again, you can move the head back and forth, up and down, really quite a lot. Doesn't know open and close his mouth. You can't do anything really with that. The figure does have a waist swivel. It's a little cumbersome because there's so much happening down below here, but at least it's staying in place. I mean, now I really have to kind of work to separate the two. The arms do rotate all the way around, and you can, of course, hinge them back and forth too. Single hinge only for the elbows, and that's obviously on both sides. So you only have a hinge there, but allows at least the forearm to rotate back and forth. The hands as well rotate all the way around with a hinge back and forth there too. Legs split it, and that's as far really as they do split. You can move them forward by only just a little bit, also move them back, but only just a little bit there. Single hinge for the knee. I couldn't help but though notice on the knee for my Mumm-Ra, he is a little loose. That's disappointing getting him out of the packaging. I've only really had this guy in the packaging for less than really an hour, and already you can see he's a little loose there. He has a swivel there in essentially because the boot cut or the guard on front of his leg is a separate piece. Technically too, you can also pull these parts off. Not that I really should be pulling them off now, but just to show you that you could pull them off in theory and swap them around with other figures as well. So like the swappability options are still there, whether Mumm-Ra is a smaller figure or not. Got the swivel there for the boots, or again that guard, and ankle pivot up and down, and ankle rocker back and forth with the toe articulation underneath. Unfortunately though, by building Mumm-Ra, I've now left myself all these extra parts of what am I going to do now with extra parts for Skeletor? I mean, I guess, like, if you're looking at the armor I'm sure could probably be repurposed and maybe displayed with another Skeletor. And I've got a couple of the version 2 Skeletors. Maybe I could find a way to kind of use the armor, the existing armor that it came with for Skell-Ra, and maybe have that for... Should we try that? Okay, let's give it a try. Just more out of curiosity than anything else. I'm going to just pop the head off here. There we go. I think that's been the first time I've actually removed the armor here for Skeletor. Just going to pull these off. I mean, you're curious, I'm curious, so if we're both curious, let's figure this out together. So we're just going to take the armor off here for Skeletor. The body is clearly going to be big anyways, but let's just see how big it actually is. Take the new armor for Skeletor, fit that over top of his body. Oh, I guess really we need ourselves a head. And we'll just get the head on there. There we go. Hey, that doesn't look that bad. Get the armor on here. There we go. Oh, did I do this? I should have popped the torso off. We're going to kind of keep the loincloth on for right now at least. Get that on there. It's loose. I mean, we all really know it's going to be loose anyways because it's using armor really that's intended for a bigger body. But I guess, yeah, I mean, it looks really silly. But I guess if you wanted to and you have to find a place to put the other parts, boy, that's a lot of P's. I guess you probably could use it with another Master Universe Origins figure. It's just going to look a little roomy. That's all. I think in the end, though, still, I mean, your personal preference varying. I would rather really just have Skell-Ra displayed as Mumm-Ra. Because again, like if you're going to be getting the ThunderCats figures, it seems really, again, strange of taking two distinct characters, two distinct baddies, and merging them together and getting yourselves one entity. I feel really, again, like Skeletor should have really been a separate piece, a separate figure release, and then Mumm-Ra would have been its own figure. But again, like I can understand why anybody would have said, well, dude, really, they're selling them as essentially a figure that you can make into two separate ones. And I get that. So if all the more reason, if you already had planned to pick up one, you might find yourself actually picking up a second one just so that you can have Skell-Ra displayed and Mumm-Ra displayed at the exact same time. Getting Mumm-Ra equipped with the Sword of Plundar. Getting also frustrated, not with the Sword of Plundar not fitting me, but the fact that the availability on these is just, again, impossible. Canadian stores, just forget about it altogether. The go-to sites of where I normally would buy Masters from, like Big Bad Toy Store, Entertainment Earth, have nothing. They have pre-orders, but the pre-orders haven't even been fulfilled yet. I think most of the listings have shown August as being the release dates for these. I know there's a lot of US collectors that have already had their hands on a lot of the ThunderCats figures. I haven't had as much of the luck. Again, sprinkling in there, here and there. I found a Mumm-Ra and I found Cheetara, but like the whereabouts even of Cheetara, ordering her from Amazon, it said that she was supposed to come on one day. Then that day, it said she was going to be coming the next day. Sure enough, though, I go to look at the listing again, and now it says, we're sorry it hasn't arrived yet. We basically are just telling you we have no idea where this thing's going to be. So I have no ideas even if Cheetara is going to show up. I might try to find if I can see if I can get her somewhere else. But just, I really feel like Mattel, in order to make these available for all collectors, not US, not Canadian, but all collectors, just make them more readily stocked in stores so that collectors like myself don't have to try to source them out on places online and pay a fortune to get their hands on them. Now, when it comes to certainly Skell-Ra and Mumm-Ra, you can choose for yourself which way to have them displayed. It's kind of really weird, though, that the merging of the properties, the collaboration of Masters and ThunderCats, yielded a figure that actually is an armor kind of replacement swap. So if you want to have him as Skell-Ra, you have to take the armor off of Mumm-Ra, and if you want to have him obviously as Mumm-Ra, you just rinse and repeat. When we have had looked at like the Master Universe Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you clearly had a Shredder and you clearly had a Skeletor. It's kind of really weird though that they're doing something different with the ThunderCats line. For me, I'm going to be displaying this guy as Mumm-Ra. He looks, first of all, better as Mumm-Ra than he does as Skell-Ra. Plus, two, if I'm going to have a Lino, I'm going to have a Panthro, I'm going to have all the ThunderCats, I would really like to have them being battling a Mumm-Ra. There's not really much on Mumm-Ra that shows for me like a Master Universe line. I mean, looking at this guy from head to toe, not even the loincloth really reads as Masters. This could easily be a stand-in for Mumm-Ra if you're just collecting ThunderCats figures as a whole, providing, of course, they're of the proper size and scale. But what do you guys think of Skell-Ra? Let me know down below in the comment section. If you have already picked this figure up or plan to pick him up, are you going to be displaying him as Skell-Ra or are you looking to display him as Mumm-Ra? Let me know what you guys think down below. If you guys also did enjoy this video, do it a solid hey now and hit it with a like. If you guys certainly want to subscribe and see what's coming more your way, then obviously turn on the bell notification. That's one way to know and let YouTube know that you are interested in the content you're seeing here and you certainly want to see more. Speaking of seeing more though, a shameless plug to a playlist. Popping at the very end of this video will be a playlist of other things I've done from Master Universe. Feel free to give that a watch, you know, if you have a little bit of time on your hands. Speaking of time on your hands, there's also going to be more videos coming your way for the rest of this week. So I hope though that you guys are going to be coming back for those. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.